Welcome to Donu's World.
Hello everyone, welcome to Donu's World, and thank God it's Friday. Okay, I recently started to share at the end of these videos some of the interesting responses that I've received from viewers. Not just on YouTube, but from other social media platforms like Facebook, and also privately from friends. And I'm doing the same on my Wednesday, at the end of my Wednesday videos, which are all about self-improvement and weight loss. And what we find is that, there have been so many responses about certain topics that we just felt, we being me and my team, just felt that we should dedicate at least one show once in a while exclusively to viewers' responses. And that's what we're going to do today. The first one is about responses received to the Harry and Meghan video I did about 2 weeks ago when Prince Harry turned 40. And I questioned whether he was mature enough for somebody of his age, somebody who's leaving youth behind and entering middle age. And I expressed the view that Meghan has manipulated him in a way that has caused too many problems for him around his family life and other issues. Okay, so here are some of the responses that I've received. Well, let me start with the people who totally disagree with me. There's a Facebook friend called Jenny Chika Okafo. She's a great fan of Meghan's, and she thinks that, Meghan is a strong, good woman who rescued Harry from a toxic royal family and took him to a happier place in California. Then there's also my friend Blessing Orage, who lives in Los Angeles, and she's also a fan of Meghan, and she thinks that I'm being very unfair to Meghan and Harry, especially to Meghan, and she thinks that Meghan and Harry are a team, and that it's very unfair to depict Harry as some sort of pathetic weakling who's being manipulated by his wife. And then I've also had a couple of reprimands from YouTubers. Well, they didn't really give me their names. Actually, there's one called Carlotta Walker who says, all of a sudden everybody's an expert on Harry. Can't you make money off someone else? Don't William and Kate sell anymore? So, honestly, I won't dignify the thing about making money with a response. All I can say, Carlotta Walker, is that if people are public figures who advertise themselves, we, the general public, and plus me as a journalist and a professional media person, have every right to comment on their behavior and the image they project and the activities they undertake. If it was about money, I'd be doing Harry and Meghan every week, because you definitely get a bigger response when you do stuff about celebrities or the British royal family. No, the reason I comment is because they're interesting to me and many millions of people across the world, and I just don't believe half of the stuff they say, okay? So I'm entitled to say so, because don't forget that these are also publicity hounds. It's not like they stay in their house minding their business and not looking for attention. They are always seeking attention. They went on Oprah Winfrey's show and did a huge, embarrassing expose of the royal family. Harry has written a book in which he embarrassed his family. So you want them to carry on like that and nobody can comment and disagree with them? Sorry, it's not going to happen, So I respect people who have a different perspective, who can see or think they can see the good side of Harry and Meghan, but you can't stop people like me who are very, very skeptical about them. And this is pretty much the same thing I would say to someone called user at blah, 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 lots of letters and numbers. Says, I should mind my own business and leave the poor man alone. He was treated appallingly by his father and stepmother, who is a monster, and beaten up by his brother, and now he has found love and is happy. Well, user at DC3FL5UL8D, to be precise, you're entitled to your opinion, and you may be right about certain aspects. Perhaps one is being a bit unfair to Harry and Meghan, but the way I see it, he had a perfectly reasonable life until she came along, and is just not bright or strong enough to withstand manipulation by a woman who has hardly any real friends of her own. I mean, for God's sake, and that isn't even on good terms with her own family. And I'm not talking about those toxic, the two half siblings who insulted her in public before the royal wedding, and in fact since the royal wedding. What about all those nice, quiet relatives that she has, like the uncle who got her the job at the American embassy in Argentina, allegedly? Why weren't any of them invited to her wedding? So you have to wonder about somebody whose only real, authentic guest at her wedding was her mother. I've never come across that before, And I say real and authentic because at the end of the day, all these fancy people we meet when we do these high-profile jobs, I mean, I'm a journalist, so I do meet quite a lot of famous and rich people myself in the line of duty. These are not your real friends. Your real peeps are your relatives and your family. But I must say one thing to user DC3FL5ULGHD. I do agree with you that, I wouldn't call Queen Camilla of the United Kingdom a monster, but I would say I am not a fan of hers based on the way that she and Prince Charles, as he was at the time, treated Harry's mother. I don't blame him for being bitter about that and for not liking Camilla. I'm not too fond of her either. I mean, she looks like the kind of woman you could have a really nice time with if she was your friend. But what they did to Diana was not great. Okay, so I agree with you on that. And I don't think, having read the account of William and Harry getting into fisticuffs as youngsters, I don't think you can accuse William of sort of being this violent person who beat his brother up. It was all childhood nonsense. Okay? Then there's Lakiva 1000, who says, who objects to my objections to Harry and Meghan and asks me whether I'm saying that Kate, William and Camilla are perfect. And I'm saying, no, I'm not saying that at all. Just because you don't like one person doesn't mean you have to love everybody that they dislike or dislike everybody they dislike. I'm being objective. Kate, I don't have much of an opinion of her. In fact, I suspect that some of Meghan's accusations against Kate are true. I suspect that Kate was not particularly welcoming. I could be wrong. I think William seems like a reasonable enough fellow, but I'm sure he's not perfect either. And Camilla, not my favorite person. So those are the people who disagree with me. But the majority of people agree. For example, we have Patricia Clark, who accuses Harry of being an arrogant upper-class snob with a sense of entitlement, who lacked the intelligence and insight to see the obvious red flags before he married Meghan. I agree with that. And Harry got the wife he deserved, and I, for one, am not in the least bit sympathetic. Well, I'm sympathetic because I think that I just think people who are prone to being manipulated should be pitied. Then we have somebody defending Catherine or Kate, Moo2351. It's fine, like her. See her as somebody who tried to make peace between the brothers. Maybe she was. Then Chloe is concerned for Harry's mental health, and so am I. In fact, I'm so convinced that in the end, he's going to wind up coming out of this, really emotionally messed up, that I have bet my friend Blessing, the one in LA that I mentioned earlier, that if the marriage doesn't collapse in the next couple of years and they wind up being happy and there's no sign of any major misery, despite the fact that he always looks miserable. Well, no, he looks miserable most of the time since he met Meghan. But I've told Blessing that if she's right, that Meghan is a wonderful, strong woman who rescued Harry, that I will take her to a really expensive lunch and admit that I was wrong. And I said, if I turn out to be right and the whole thing falls apart, she will have to take me to a really expensive lunch if I'm proved right. So that's fine. We'll see how it goes. Then we have Drew. Says that a lot of people on YouTube criticize King Charles for not being tougher on them and for not stripping them of their royal titles, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. I think Harry should be left with the title because it's his birthright. And I don't think it should be taken from him. And I don't think it will make any difference to how they are perceived by the world. People who like them will continue to like them even if the title is taken from them. And people who dislike them will have nothing more than a slightly sort of petty-minded satisfaction, because it's a bit mean-spirited to take. It's like taking someone's surname away from them, because you're not happy about how they've behaved. Prince Harry will always be Prince Harry, and his late grandmother gave him that title, and I think they should leave it with him. And it's unfortunate that he's not using it the way some of us would prefer him to use it, but I think it's his. And he should be allowed to keep it. And Drew thinks that as a parent, King Charles must be quite brokenhearted about what has happened to his son, and that is why he's reluctant to do anything, hard against Harry. And there's a lot to be said. I mean, this is something, these are human topics that happen in all families. Well, not all families, in many families, where there are fallouts, there are disagreements. And how do you deal with such situations? Do you go after the other person, hammer and tongs, or do you just stand back and hope that the bitterness will fade over time? And I think that's what King Charles is doing. And I think that's what I would do if I were in his shoes. Is just pray that one day Harry will see the light and come home. And I don't know whether he can ever be fully forgiven. But I just think that it's good that the king is not teaching him a lesson, I think they are pretty much ignoring Harry and Meghan. I mean, I spoke to somebody who would know these things, that when they came to Nigeria a couple of months ago, the British government completely ignored the fact that they were coming to a Commonwealth country. The British embassy here did not say a word, did not participate in any way. I think that's the best way to deal with errant children. Ignore them, because they're never going to have that much impact compared to the mighty institution of the monarchy. So, fine. Thank you, SIP8681. You say you love the channel and you think that Meghan has manipulated the racial issue. Totally agree with you. She says, if you look at Meghan's life in photos, both in the US and Canada, there's not a single person of color in her past life. All her boyfriends were white. All her managers and employees were white since she left the royal family. I'm not sure that's true actually, but most of them are definitely white. And Oprah's the only sort of like black friend, big black friend, important black friend that she had. But she had Serena Williams as well, to be fair. But I tend to agree that Meghan has not been a very conscious black woman throughout her life, and she does tend to weaponize the fact that she is mixed race And I did accuse her on my video 2 weeks ago of using black people to burnish her politically correct credentials. I do think that, you know, that's part of her game plan. And then Kiora says, William also lost his mother, but he doesn't try and monetize the fact that he lost his mother and go on about it as much as Harry does. I think that's because William is smarter than Harry, and, you know, it's all a bit tasteless, and, you know, no problem. I mean, he can do what he wants. It's his mother too. But please, those of you who think Harry is so amazing, and he does have fans, should remember that William also lost his mother and doesn't make a fuss about it, and probably is in as much pain as Harry is. And we'll exit the Harry and Meghan section by quoting Jude Webb, who believes that the old Harry is still lurking in there somewhere and will live to regret the decisions he's made since he left the royal family with his wife and is currently trapped in her world. And like I said, well, we'll see how it works out for him. Oh, and one final thing I will say about Harry and Meghan is that, you know, I'm always suspicious of people who can see no fault in anything they've done, okay? So, it's like they believe that everyone's been nasty to them and they have never made any mistake or been nasty to anybody, which I'm pretty sure is almost impossible, okay? So, I would suggest to Harry that if he ever wants to reconcile with his family, at least keep the door open as a possibility, the reconciliation thing as a possibility for the future. He must admit at some point in public that he hasn't always been perfect and he regrets one or two things he may have said or done, and just say sorry. You know? You don't have to say sorry for everything, but just stop being so sanctimonious and carrying on as if you've never done anything wrong and everyone around you is a demon. Right, now last week, I interviewed my friend Polly Alakija, wonderful artist, great woman, about her experience as a British woman living in Nigeria and having married a Nigerian. And I got a really overwhelmingly positive response overall. A lot of them private from people who knew Polly or me, contacted me privately. And here are some of the comments from YouTube and other social media platforms. One of them was that one person felt that I was extremely rude, that it was a horrible interview. This is no name, just AEIOU 0123, okay? So AEIOU thinks that it was a horrible interview and that I kept rudely cutting Polly off and not letting her finish her thoughts or answer my questions. See, I have to explain something to you. First of all, YouTube videos really don't need to be more than 30 minutes long. In fact, most people don't even stay and listen for more than 5 or 10 minutes. So we're always trying to keep the videos as short as possible. Polly and I spoke for much longer than the 30 minutes or so that you saw, but we had to edit the video to, you know, so that we could keep it at a manageable size. So, some of the extra detail that you would have liked would have been cut out during the editing process. And sometimes if I appeared to be abrupt or to not be allowing Polly to finish a sentence or whatever, that was part of the editing process, though it might also be partly my fault. So I apologize if you felt kind of shortchanged by that video, but most people didn't. And I don't think Polly herself did. So let me just get to some of the other comments that I received. Well, you know, people were fascinated. Lorna Henry says it was a really interesting topic. She, having been a stewardess on British Caledonian Airways, and British Airways, wound up marrying a Ugandan Asian and living in Zambia, from what I could see. So she could really empathize with Polly as a foreign white wife in an African country. So Lorna felt that she felt that she could have been sitting there at that table with us because she empathized so much with the topic and with Polly. It would have been nice if you'd been there to join the conversation, Lorna. Then there's one from someone called Poultry Farm 08. Again, really enjoyed the conversation, fascinated by the topic. And she says she's not surprised that Polly said that she feels more hostility today as a white person in Nigeria than she did when she first came 3 decades ago to marry her Nigerian husband. Poultry Farm, sorry, but I don't have your real name. Poultry Farm says he or she blames social media for making conversations about race increasingly toxic. And then she praises Polly's work as an artist, and Polly is indeed a great artist. And oh, by the way, a couple of people complained that there wasn't enough about Polly's artwork. And I almost feel as if we need to do a separate program on that, because she is outstanding. And we did show some examples of her paintings in the video, but I guess you didn't get a chance to see the full range of her work. But she's great, and she does greeting cards as well, so I use those quite a lot now to say happy birthday or whatever to friends. Okay, so living healthy with Owen is another viewer who says she thoroughly enjoyed the discussion, loved Polly's positivity, and likes my channel. She says she feels as if she's sitting with me when I'm chatting, and that is the impression I try to give. Even when I'm talking on my own like this, I want you to feel as if we're all sort of like in the same space, kind of like being intimate about things that are important to all of us as human beings. So I'm glad I've succeeded at least in making living healthy feel that way. Then we've got Patricia Wask, who's a regular commenter, and she also found it very, very interesting. She says Nigeria seems to be somewhere that is warm and accepting of anybody. That's good to learn, because Americans are at each other's throat at the moment, mainly because of political corruption and intolerance, and I think also because of some, issues around race, which have been thrown up by Donald Trump mostly. But I'm not a Trump fan, but we won't go into that now. We'll talk about Trump and Kamala later, nearer the American election time. Anyway, Patricia says that she'd like to know more about Nigeria's extended family members being a bit too involved in nuclear family business. And she found it interesting that Polly said that her late husband took steps to protect her. And then Patricia talks about losing her own husband, because Polly's a widow. And I'm glad she has found happiness with a new husband. And she wants to know how Polly and I became acquainted. I met Polly a couple of years ago through my oldest friends in Abuja, very close friends. I'd call them my best friends actually in Abuja. Carol, who's English, and Miguel, who's Spanish. And it's a sort of multi-generational friendship, because I met their parents when they were alive, and our children are friends as well. Anyway, they have this amazing garden, and that's where I met Polly a couple of years ago. I'm surprised though that I didn't meet Polly much sooner, because we have so many other friends in common. You can be in the same circles as someone and drifting around in the same places, and somehow you only meet them quite late in life. Anyway, so that's me and Polly. And then let's quickly move on to someone called Afolari Akinola, clearly a Nigerian, probably a man. She says, isn't it intriguing? He says sarcastically that the guest, that's Polly, seems to have a more positive perspective on Nigerian men than the host, that's me. Well, there's nothing particularly intriguing about it. She married a very nice Nigerian man, and so she has a positive attitude towards Nigerian men. I did say in the video that I have lots of Nigerian male friends, and I would like to think some of them are good husbands. So, I'm not going to sit around praising Nigerian men to the high heavens as if they have no faults, because they do. And even Polly said in that video that with Nigerian men, womanizing is a given. It's something you don't even argue about or talk about too much. So you're treading on very thin ice if you're complaining about the attitude displayed towards Nigerian men in that video. I think we were quite kind. Then there's someone called Uncommon Conversation who wants to know what's my definition of a sophisticated African man. I think because I called Polly's husband sophisticated because he plays polo. Well, polo is the sport of kings. I mean, King Charles plays, a lot of aristocrats and monarchs play in different countries, rich people in America, Indian Maharajas played polo. So do I really have to spell it out? That people who can afford to play polo tend to be very sophisticated, whether they are African, Indian, European, American, Australian, or whatever. But you know what? Since you've kind of challenged me with that question, you tell me what you think a sophisticated African man is. What's your definition of sophistication? And another complaint from someone who says it didn't allow Polly to talk enough. We did long videos right at the beginning of this series when we started Donu's World, March, April. We did a couple of long interviews with somebody who had been very involved in negotiating with the people who kidnapped me in 2015. And we did 2 long interviews. I think each one was nearly an hour. And what we found was that, people didn't necessarily, because you can tell, people didn't necessarily watch it through to the end. And we came to the conclusion then, when I say we, I mean me and my staff, the people who helped me put my videos together. We came to the conclusion that people don't really want you to go on for too long. They like the videos to be short and crisp. I was even told, some people have even told me that 30 minutes is too long for any topic or any interview. But I do try and keep within 30 minutes. I'm sorry if my interviewing style grated on your nerves or if I did anything that, you feel was unprofessional. But it's all about trying to keep the timing under control, because that's what I've been advised to do. And that's what my previous experience with longer videos taught me, is that people don't want to listen for an hour or 45 minutes, unless maybe, you're some kind of superstar. I mean, I'm sure if my name was Donu Kardashian, people would be willing to sort of watch from beginning to end, even if I talked for 2 hours with my friends or on my own. So just, bear with us. Not perfect. I mean, we even have technical hitches, sorry. Sometimes the picture quality or the sound quality are not good enough. Sometimes my discussions directly to you or with someone like Polly may not be perfect either. We're doing our best. I do appreciate the criticism because, most criticisms are constructive and worth listening to. So thanks for letting me know what you think. Okay, well, in the spirit of trying to keep the videos at 30 minutes or shorter, I can't really go on for much longer, but we've had loads and loads of really interesting responses from people about topics I've covered in the past, like single motherhood and loneliness. And so, we will revisit these topics in future, and we will continue to include viewers' voices at the end, or sometimes even dedicate whole programs to viewers' voices like today, as we have today, and just try to keep you all on board and, make you feel that you're part of a sort of discussion group or chat room or family. Okay, so thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to tune in to Wellness Wednesday, which is about my battles with my weight and my health. and about beauty and other issues. So thank you. That's all for this week. Bye.